And what was she saying? I forgot me teeth at home, baby. I gotta go back and get. And I'm so in shock by what I just saw because did I just see a baby come and poop and walk away here? What is going on? Where are his parents? So you mean to tell me that you almost have as many gambling shops as you have grocery stores? Some countries get to be defined by their best PR. Other countries are defined by their worst headlines. And if you're making a decision about where to move your family, that gap between branding and reality can end up costing you. Because you might overlook a place that would have been perfect because the news or popular discourses on social media about it scared you. Or you might romanticize a place that disappoints you the moment you step outside of the touristy areas. I've been to a lot of places and traveled for a decade and a half. And one thing I've learned is that every country has a version of itself that it sells to the world, and a version you only see after you actually show up, or when you have family there, or when you stay long enough for the shine to wear off. One day I was riding the bus and I was tired and almost drifting off into sleep when I was awakened by the sound of a woman speaking loudly on her phone. And what was she saying? I forgot me teeth at home, baby. I gotta go back and get them. And I was like, huh? And I looked over at this lady having this conversation, and she indeed did not have her teeth in her mouth. And I just thought, this is so London. I grew up consuming British culture. Mr. Darcy, tea, posh accents, the idea of the United Kingdom, and England in particular, as refined, sophisticated, and proper. And so as I visited there with family, as I studied abroad there as well, I thought that I would be in the hills of Wiltshire with Mr. Darcy. And I was on the tube with, people who were going through it. One day my cousin was going to a grocery store and she was trying to figure out which Tesco she wanted to go to. Tesco's a grocery store in the UK. And I was very confused because I had seen this shop, Ladbrokes, on almost every corner in London and the places that I'd gone. And so I was just like, why are you bending over backwards to get to a Tesco when if you really need something quickly, let's just go to the Ladbrokes down the street. And that is when she disillusioned me of my assumption. Ladbrokes is a betting shop. It's for gambling. So you mean to tell me that you almost have as many gambling shops as you have grocery stores? You have gambling shops on almost every corner. I think that that is a marker of the desperation of a people and of how the system, such that it is not really set up to help everyone. There are places in the UK that are poorer than some of the places that we in the US associate with just abject poverty. And it is interesting that those places just don't get as much attention as London Town, Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, etc., etc. The UK has real issues with class and with racism and with cost of living, but it gets to lead with its best PR because of centuries of cultural export. It has built a brand that most people never question, but you should question it. So I was walking down the street through a neighborhood in Catalonia, and I looked over and I saw a child between 5 to 7 years old standing next to, what do you call them? Garbage can? A garbage container. And he pulls down his pants, poops on the floor, pulls his pants up, and that baby walks away. And I'm so in shock by what I just saw because did I just see a baby come and poop and walk away here? What is going on? Where are his parents? I think that Europe broadly gets a pass as being clean, cultured, civilized, historical. Then I go and I watch a child relieve himself next to a garbage can in broad daylight and walk off. I have studied in Spain, I've done research in Spain, I've spent real time there. And I do love some aspects of Spain. It's on my move abroad short list. But the idea that Europe is inherently more developed or more put together than other parts of the world is a story that people tell themselves. Every place has its version of what I just talked about. And Spain happens to be a place where I saw it with my own eyes when we're talking about poverty, absent parents, housing insecurity, etc., etc. These are things that you don't necessarily learn about when you are getting on that plane to Malaga, but they exist there just as much as they might exist in some other locations that bear the brunt of negative stigma around these kinds of issues. Now let's talk about countries that get the opposite treatment. Let's talk about Mexico. A lot of people hear Mexico and think danger, cartels, political instability, political unrest. But I have Mexican residency. I have spent time in Querétaro and Tijuana. And what I've seen is pretty much a continuity of the familiar US architecture and infrastructure that I am accustomed to. And this makes sense because these countries border each other, and you're just going to have similarities where there have been centuries of social entanglements, economic entanglements, etc. The Mexico that I have experienced is kid-friendly. It's warm, it's functional, and in many ways, it is closer to everyday American life than life in the UK. When I was in Querétaro, we could go to Costco. We went to Walmart. We went to HEB, which is a Texan grocery store. Mexico doesn't get that positive PR as much as it should, I think. It gets cartel headlines. Indonesia is the country with the biggest Muslim population in the world. And that headline is often cited, or this fact is often cited. And when people hear it, they fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. Indonesia is also where Bali is. So Bali is this non-Muslim part of the country that is absolutely lush and beautiful and green, and it's portrayed as this paradise. So I've not been to Bali, but I have been to Jakarta. I went there for a week to visit friends. And I happened to be there on Good Friday and learned that the Grand Mosque is right across the street from a church. So you had Good Friday services going on when Friday prayer services were going on. And it was so beautiful to see this kind of religious coexistence happening quietly and normally, because that is everyday life in Indonesia. And that kind of tolerance and cooperation doesn't get highlighted because it doesn't fit the narrative that people have already built. Indonesia is either Bali or is all them Muslim people. And what I saw in Jakarta was neither. So there you have it. Some countries lead with their best PR and some countries don't or can't. And when you are thinking about moving abroad, that means you need to pay attention to media, headlines, cultural discourses, but pay attention to them and understand that they can be unreliable. Go on scouting trips, review scouting trips of people who have been there and have personal experiences about these places to share. That way, you make sure that you are moving to a country that you truly would actually want to live in. That's my thoughts on the difference between PR and reality in different countries, but I'd love to hear about other experiences. What has been your experience with the image of what a country is versus the reality of visiting there and living there? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.